The TVR Tuscan Speed 6 is 25 years old this year, and if you live in the USA, you know what that means. Yep, all the fun of the fair is coming to you. So, we thought we should take it on a special journey on some roads near its home, the UK's answer to Las Vegas, Blackpool.
We'll be driving across floodplain and fell on TVR's old test route, asking what a Tuscan is like 25 years on. Will it even make it to the end of this film? What of TVR today?
And why this particular bit of road affected the design of the car.
If this film rollers your coaster, then please think about joining the Hagerty Drivers Club. You get things like an award-winning magazine and 24/7 roadside assistance. To discover all the joys of joining, just click on the link in the description down below.
Door release. Help. That. No. Twiddle that. No. No. How about... Ah! Of course, why wouldn't you press something that says window on it? Finding your way out of a TVR can often feel a bit like an escape room challenge. The Tuscan Speed 6 story spans 8 years, from 1999 to 2006. And for me, it is really the quintessential TVR. It's got all the supercar drama, the supercar performance, but at a purchase price that wasn't and isn't stratospherically supercar high. We've got the two bookends of the Tuscan story really here, starting with this, the 2000 car with fewer than 10,000 miles on the clock actually. And then over here we have, well, the other end of the scale, from 2005, a convertible. And between these two, there were of course plenty of iterations and variants.
About 1,700 Tuscans were produced in total, with Red Rose, S, Targa, Convertible, Sport and Comfort versions. Today, we're going to be driving this later convertible Tuscan too, because frankly they got dynamically better over the years, so this well-loved one-owner car should be among the best. After leaving the pleasure beach behind, we headed out through the suburbs into the countryside to the first notable bit of road on our historic TVR test route.
Legend has it that this straight was, well, TVR's equivalent of aero or Nardo. This was their high-speed testing ground along with the M55 motorway. And that might explain why their quoted top speeds were, well, perhaps more hopeful estimates.
The speedometer goes up to 200 miles an hour, and with enough space you could wind the needle all the way off the end. But when Evo magazine bravely tested a Tuscan S on the autobahn, 180 miles an hour was the best verified figure they could reach.
Still, not bad for a homegrown engine.
And part of the appeal of the Tuscan is undoubtedly the Speed 6. Originally designed by Al Melling, the naturally aspirated aluminium engine came in 3.6 and 4 litre forms, producing between 360 and just over 400 brake horsepower. Of course, the Speed 6 also played a significant part in TVR's rather negative reliability reputation. An engine rebuild often seems to be talked about with the nonchalance of keeping the washer fluid topped up. Lubrication and material quality were, broadly speaking, the key issues with the engine, particularly in early cars. But as our test route heads away from the coast, I can't help but wonder if perhaps it's all just a matter of perspective.
I think the key thing to keep in mind with the engine, what for me made it all make sense, is that you have to think about it like a race engine, because that's essentially what it is. And if you treat it like a race engine, so you warm it up properly, which you can do because you've actually got all the appropriate temperatures and things down here, helpfully in the instrument binnacle. And if you maintain it like a race engine and you're prepared for the costs associated with maintaining a race engine, then it's fine.
Of course, those competition credentials combined with what look like superbike cans on the exhaust do have their benefits.
This has all the slight pops and bangs and crackles that had to be engineered in other cars. Obviously, a straight six is an inherently balanced engine, and yeah, once it's all warm and up and running, it's a joy to use.
It's surprisingly tractable and torquey low down too. The only thing that takes a bit of getting used to is the unusually long arc of the floor hinge throttle pedal. The TVR test drivers were renowned for their athletic ankles apparently.
This lay-by here is apparently where they used to do all their exercises. It was sort of, they brought in a ballet coach to really extend their toes and be able to use that throttle travel. Or maybe not. Perhaps I made that up.
As you can see, we're now up onto bleak, wide open fells near a Victorian folly called the Jubilee Tower. Here lies the real meat of this TVR test route, a proper examination of a car's dynamics, with plenty of undulations, cambers and bumps.
This is their Nurburgring, their Weissach, their Bolocco, their Millbrook, all rolled into one, and pretty much within sight of the factory on a clear day as well. The gearbox is not something I remember people really raving about at the time, but getting back into this now is one of the highlights. The pedals are perfectly placed for heel and toe downshifts as well, which always makes me happy. From a steering and suspension and handling point of view, this convertible, this late Tuscan Speed Six, is, well, I suppose it's like a slightly diluted version of the early cars. So all the little quirks have been, well, just muted a little bit. They're definitely still there, and if this was the first Tuscan that you drove, you would still get into it and think various things. One, how quick the steering is, because it is really quick, but it was 1.7 lock to lock in the early cars, and now it's just over 2 in this, so it's still quick, almost frighteningly so when you first get into it, when you get up to speed, but it's just a little bit calmer than the early cars.
The suspension is double wishbones all round, and early cars were notably soft at the rear. In fact, the tubular steel spine chassis was derived from the Griffith, and it was arguably not quite as fundamentally stiff as it should have been. As a result, the Tuscan has never been a dynamic paragon, and pushing the limits is best done with a bit of caution.
Famously, the brakes lack ABS, and that sounds a bit terrifying, but actually the pedal's got a lovely amount of feel. And it's a bit like the whole car really, sort of, you know, no traction control, no aids, the sharp steering, it all sounds like it could be terrifying, and if you try and push the limits in one of these, then yeah, you've got to be brave, I think. But just rein it back in, treat it with a bit of respect, understand what you're dealing with, and it's really enjoyable.
It has real character, and with a 0 to 60 time of under 4 seconds, it certainly has enough performance to match its fabulous looks.
The Tuscan was stunning when it was launched, and it still looks spectacular today. The swooping sculptural glass fibre bodywork is just spectacular. Obviously on this early car we've got the open lights down here, and then this very distinctive pierced grille down at the bottom, wondering where the Ferrari Roma got its inspiration from. The later car over here, well, there's a few more thoughts about aerodynamics and obviously those top speed numbers. So you could get a splitter here, we've got the faired-in headlights, and on the boot there's just a little lip. What's really surprised me though is just how, well, timeless the designs of both these cars are.
As far as the interiors are concerned, well, this early one is part steampunk, part bimetal Rolex. It's so wild and tactile. Really, what we laud now in fantastically expensive resto mods, TVR was doing 25 years ago. The Tuscan interiors did of course evolve just like the exteriors, getting a little wavier and a touch more practical over time. Cup holder anyone? All the Tuscans are surprisingly practical actually, with a cavernous boot. One particular thing about the look of this car that I always associate with TVRs is the paint. The flip paint, or in TVR parlance, reflex paint. From some angles it's green, others it's purple. It's just wild and about as 90s as a hypercolour t-shirt or a magic eye picture. It is expensive too. I think there's only one place that still produces this, and it's upwards of £500 per litre. I just find it extraordinary. You can buy it in a tin. You expect to find it on the shelf up next to the tartan paint. Perhaps the only thing wilder than the look is the name, because TVR called this charcoal, and there's absolutely nothing grey about it. unlike the sky, which has now turned distinctly drab for the next part of our journey in the Tuscan. But this is an important stretch of tarmac.
This road on our Lancashire loop, our Lancashire Nordschleife, also affected the design of the TVRs of this era. Why? Well, simply because it's narrow, and they wanted them to fit down this road. If you're driving this road a lot, you don't want something big and wide that you're constantly sort of wincing when something comes the other way. You might notice that I have put the roof up. Work of a moment, I promise. Okay. Okay, undo that, swing that back, and...
While I'm doing this, there is just enough time to consider the fact that the convertible Tuscan nearly got an electrically folding hardtop roof like a Mercedes SLK. At least that's what Nikolai Smolenski, who took over the company in 2004, apparently wanted. Probably best he didn't get his way. I think I prefer slow and reliable over fast and flaky, even if this is a bit Heath Robinson.
Can I get... Okay. Actually, the roof is pretty good. It feels nice and snug in here, and there's no water coming in, and it's heaving it down with rain at the moment. I love this bit of road through here. Not necessarily for any particular sort of dynamic testing reasons, but just there's something kind of rather beautiful about it, a little bit sort of fairy tale. Not fairy tales as in rainbows and unicorns, but the slightly sort of darker ones, you know, where a wolf finishes the story by licking his lips, and the narrator says, "And that, children, is why you don't trust people in pointy hats. And always check your tyre pressures before a long journey." Maybe my parents embellished, I don't know.
This is close to where Peter Wheeler lived in later years, the smoking, shooting giant of a Yorkshireman who was TVR's boss from 1981 to 2004, would have been 80 this year, or rather, he would have been 20 as he was born in a leap year on the 29th of February. The rest of our route also takes us past an earlier home of his, and one employee I spoke to remembered driving past his front door enthusiastically in the early hours of the morning on the way back from a test. The noise of a pre-cat Griffith bellowing at 6,000 RPM must surely have woken Wheeler up, but he never mentioned it the next day at the factory. And the factory, or what's left of it on Bristol Avenue, is where we're heading now.
See? Easy to get out once you know how. There was really one appropriate place to end up, and it was number 6 Tuscan Way on what is the Wheeler hub, a sort of slowly regenerating site of the old TVR factory. What's become of TVR cars now? Well, nobody really knows. Is it going to be with a Cosworth engine? Is it going to be electric? I asked them for a comment, but to be honest, nobody got back to me, and it was pretty hard to find any way of contacting them. However, whatever happens to TVR in the future, I think these cars from their past somehow seem more relevant than ever.
They're not perfect cars, and owning one is a bit like having a pet, with all the emotional and financial baggage they can entail. But unlike a pet, the Tuscan Speed Six doesn't seem to have aged. It was resolutely analogue and slightly anachronistic when it was launched 25 years ago, and it still feels so special and seems to capture the mood of what enthusiasts want today.